Hi, I'm Jesse with Canine Perspective, and this is the top 5 questions new dog owners have. Number 1 is, I just adopted a dog, now what? Well, definitely before you adopt a dog, you want to do your research, and this happens a lot. Fortunately for us, or for dogs, very easy for anyone to go to a humane society or rescue for the most part, and then just pull out a dog. More reliable places or more strict places, do screen, and they try to wean out people they believe won't be good dog owners, right? So, but not all places do. Some places just want to bring the dogs and home them. So definitely want to do your research if you're looking for a specific breed. If you're a new dog owner, if you've never had a dog in your life, I don't suggest getting a power breed. Don't get a Rottweiler, don't get a German Shepherd, don't get a Pit Bull, Bull Terrier. Get something medium sized, get a smaller dog, one that would be probably easier to handle, considering you've not had a dog in your life. And I see that happen a lot, where people get very powerful dogs as their first dog. So definitely don't want to do that. Also, training. Get your dog into training immediately. Don't wait for things to happen. It's not just like we pick up a dog, we put him in the home, and everything's going to be fine and dandy. Sometimes you may pick up a dog that has issues, and sometimes people like to wait a couple of years before they actually seek help. The problem is with that, the problem is actually always easy to fix. Like if I were to take a dog, even if it's been aggressive its whole life, or it's has separation anxiety its whole life, or some other kind of behavior issue that stems from lack of structure, with me it goes away within 2 days, within that 2-day time frame, right? So the reason is the dog's first impression of me is going to be rules and structure and discipline. So that alleviates a lot of problems. But when we're working with the owner, if the owner's had the dog for 2 years, I'm working against 2 years of practice behavior with the owner. So the dog already has an association, and he or she goes, I've done what I wanted this whole time, and now you're turning around and giving me rules, and I'm not gonna roll with that. Like, I'm gonna protest, and then we're just kind of countering all that stuff. So the sooner you begin your training, the easier it is to prevent any problems from happening, or addressing any problems that may have already been there, right? So if you only had the dog for a month and you're starting to see reactivity, then you get it squashed right away. It's easier. The other thing is, people tend to give their dogs too much freedom. They rescue the dog, they bring him home, and they're like, here you go, and have at it, and they leave the dog unattended when they're gone, or they let the dog sleep on the bed, or they let the dog sleep on the couch, or they let the dog do whatever it wants because they feel bad that the dog was locked up in the rescue, right? We don't want to do that, because that can create problems because it's too much too soon. So Cesar Millan has this thing that he says that for the first 2 weeks to ignore a dog and to only give them discipline and structure, and I completely agree with that. When I foster dogs or board dogs or doing a board and train, I never give dogs affection or any kind of coddling or any kind of privileges like sleeping on the bed or being on the couch and stuff. I keep that stuff reserved for my personal dogs. So this way my dogs they have their space, and then the other dogs are below them, and it just keeps a nice little structure going on, and it helps prevent any actual behavior problems from happening. So during those 2 weeks when we first bring a dog home, they're finding where their place is within the family, what the hierarchy is, what they can and can't do. And around the 2-week mark is when you're going to start to see the dog's true personality. And I've had clients where literally on the 2-week mark, the dog flips, and let's say it went from loving everybody in the home to all of a sudden possessing the mother and being aggressive towards the husband and the children and the mother and father, and nobody else can touch the dog but the mom, or the dad or the kid or what have you, because during that time frame the dog's going, well, the mom coddles me so much and gives me so many treats and empowers me, I'm going to possess her, and everybody else is going to be off limits, or they can't touch us, or something like that. So definitely, if everybody's on the same page of giving the dog structure, and not one person spoiling them while everybody else gives structure, we don't see those kind of problems. Not to say that they won't happen, but it does help with that stuff. And of course, if your dog has separation anxiety, if your dog is inclined towards separation anxiety, if I rescue a dog and bring him home, and I just leave him unattended and I leave to work the next day, we don't know what happened with the dog. The dog could have been owner surrendered, knew this family for 5 years, goes to a humane society, gets picked up from a rescue, and then gets put into a home. And so we have all these changes happening really fast. Sometimes it can happen within 24 hours, sometimes it can happen over the course of the week. And it's a lot of stress. And all that stress is going to come out, especially if we take the dog into a home with no structure, and the dog's lost because of all these changes and doesn't know who to look to for guidance, and we have problems. So, and it could be like barking and howling, or it could be as bad as destructive behavior where the dog's like tearing up the drywall, or the dog's pulling out the trim from around the door frame, trying to get out, or breaking through windows. Like it can get really bad, or breaking through kennels. Like I've had dogs break teeth or like tear up their nose just trying to push out of a kennel. So definitely don't want to leave them unattended. And this is also where the rules and discipline come in, because I get dogs that have separation anxiety, and I don't see it after about 24 hours, because again, I come in, the dog comes into my home, and I hit them with discipline, structure immediately. So the dog just goes, okay, like I know where my spot is in this house. I'm bottom of the barrel. He makes the rules. There's no one to attach to. There's no one to possess. So I'm not going to stress out when this guy leaves, right? So definitely, if you've just adopted a dog, do your research before getting the dog. Hire a dog trainer as soon as possible. Ideally, somebody who does balanced dog training, which is both positive and negative. Because even if you get a trainer that's purely positive, it may not get you the results that you're looking for obedience-wise in terms of reliability, or two, their sense of consequence isn't going to help you with your particular dog, right? So be very, very open-minded and seek help immediately if you're experiencing problems. Question number 2, will he or she be friendly with other dogs, people, or children? Generally, dogs are screened either humane societies or rescues prior to being rehomed. It's not to say that things don't happen. It's not to say that every place does. So generally, they will have a note on the card that says like needs to be in the only like a one dog family or only dog home. Doesn't do well with cats. Doesn't do well with children. So generally, there's already note cards or notes that come with the dog. However, just because a dog was fine with children in one home or like with the rescue's home, like I've had dogs that they said, oh, he was in a foster and he was great, or she was great with the foster's dogs, and like that foster had like 5 other dogs, and then they take them or her and put them into another family, and then that dog is now fighting with the family's current dog, right? Because it's a totally different environment, different rules, different structure. If all these dogs were confident and this dog's a low-ranking dog that was being rehomed, then there probably is going to be an issue, because this dog knows its place amongst those 5 other dogs, right? But if we take this low-ranking dog and put it with the lower-ranking dog, like a dog that's like a 2 and this one's like a 4, then you might see some bullying issues, right? Or then maybe if they're the same rank, you might see some issues there because of conflict. So just because notes say dog was friendly prior doesn't mean it's going to actually transfer into a new home. And this is why structure and discipline is very important, because we can override anything. Any behavior that the dog exhibits, we can override it and we can disagree with it as long as you're willing to do the homework. In the cases where we're not willing to do the homework, or there's no sense of correction or discipline or authority, that problem is not going to go away and it's going to become a bigger issue. So will he or she be friendly with other dogs? It's hard to say, because again, it's all contextual in terms of environment, but generally note cards do give you an idea. Or if they always have some kind of notes, or you can speak with the person, and if they don't have enough backstory on the dog, well then you have to decide yourself. All right, well I'm taking in this Yorkie, and I'm not sure if it's going to be friendly with other dogs, people, or children. It's a Yorkie, so it's a small dog, not going to be a big deal of control. But if you're going for a Rott, and you see a Rottweiler, and they don't have any back history on that dog, that's a little bit different, because you're dealing with a very powerful breed. And unless you're willing to work with a trainer, you don't know essentially what you may or may not get. So that just remains to be seen. What's normal behavior when playing with other dogs? So dogs play with their mouths. They especially if you have power breeds like the pit bulls or bull terriers or like German shepherds and Malinois, stuff like that. They play with their mouths and they bite a lot, right? So I have a pit bull myself, and when I go to the dog park with her, she plays rough with dogs she knows she can play rough with. I've seen her play with puppies, and she's very gentle with puppies. And I've seen her like bulldoze into other dogs like a tank that she knows they can take it. So she has a very good balanced sense of playing. If I were to see that she was not playing well with the dog, or the dog wasn't tolerating her play style, then I would want to step in. But normal behavior essentially is we want to see a lot of circular behavior, right? So meaning it's kind of like a give and take. So if the dogs are playing chase, one dog is usually the chaser and then the other dog is a chasee, but then they'll do that for so long and then it'll stop, and then it flips, and then the dog that was chasing becomes the chasee and the other one becomes a chaser, right? Or they'll be dominating each other where they'll be wrestling and you'll see one on the ground and one on top. They'll do that for a little while and then it'll flip, and then it'll be the other one on the bottom, the other one on top. It's very balanced and it's very circular, meaning like you'll essentially see a lot of circular motion. If it starts to get a little too squared off or a little too linear or too kind of rigid, that's when there's starting to be some tension, right? And considering the dogs play rough, sometimes energy can escalate too much, and then it can possibly lead to a fight or a scuffle, right? And I always kind of use it as an example. Back in high school, when kids would play like slaps with each other, then one kid would slap too hard, and then the other one will take it personally, and then they would like slap back even harder, and eventually it became from like one goes from a game to actual conflict, and then we have a fight. Well, similar with dogs, because as they're playing, they tend to get more and more agitated or escalated in terms of energy level or state of mind, and if that just continues to build and there's no limit or no ceiling or anybody that doesn't come in and go like, hey, like you guys need to bring it down a notch, it can escalate into a fight or into a scuffle. And that's generally the ones that you may see where it looks really bad, but then when you pull them apart, like no dog really did a bite, or there was no damage, there was no blood, there was no breaking of skin. That was just a scuffle, right? Because when the dogs intend to do harm, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. Dogs are very keen and very good at bite inhibition and gauging how hard to bite and how much damage to put. So normal behavior when playing, barking, chasing, jumping, tackling each other, wrestling, all that stuff is normal. That's just how dogs play, especially if you have a bully breed. So we want to make sure that we're watching and keeping tabs on the energy level as well as the play style. If my pit were to be playing too rough with the dog that I saw wasn't taking it well, I would come in and I would check her or correct her and break her off to leave that dog alone, because he or she is just not feeling it, right? And likewise, if I see another person's dog at the dog park playing with Lexi and she's done and she's starting to curl her lip and say, look, I'm done with this, I don't want to play with you anymore, and that dog is not picking up on those cues, my job to step in and correct that dog so that she doesn't feel she has to, because since she's a pit, people tend to misread her body language, right? And also, you'll see things like teeth, like they'll curl back their lips and stuff, and they'll bare teeth. It doesn't mean they're being aggressive. It's just how they play. It's just, again, watching the energy level and watching that it's balanced and it's shifting between the two dogs or three dogs or what have you very evenly, so that it doesn't escalate into anything. How do I socialize two or more dogs into a single home? That's a good question. So I personally don't like to just bring a dog home, like a dog into my home, or like I don't recommend that people just, if they have a dog already, that they take a new dog and they bring them into the home, because new dog is coming into old dog's territory, right? So that can create some conflict. It's actually better if you introduce them in neutral territory, which would be outside. And it could be as simple as right in front of the house on the sidewalk, right? And walking them together is key. Like, this is how, when I first started out, I always did it. When clients would drop off their dogs that were dog aggressive or dog reactive, I would be outside with my dogs. I would grab that dog, I would go for a quick walk with them, give some structure, give some discipline, and then I would have my family hand off my dogs to me, and I would go for a long hour walk, We would come back, we would go into the yard, I would drop the leashes, I would let them kind of socialize, leaving the leashes on just in case anything happened for like 15 to 30 minutes, and then from there we would go inside the house, right? And the reason why I like this is, and when I got this method from Cesar Millan, is it takes off a lot of pressure. So when we bring a dog into a home, obviously the old dog is going to have some kind of possession issue, right? Possibly. I mean, if you have a friendly, like a happy-go-lucky dog, that's perfect, that's great, awesome. You may not need to do that, but you don't know the dog that you're getting from the pound or the rescue or the Humane Society. That dog may have done fine at the rescue environment with all those dogs, just because of the environment. But then all of a sudden you take that dog and you put him into a home with another dog, it's different, it's a little bit more personal. So bringing them out and introducing them like that takes off a lot of face-to-face pressure, right? Because they're walking beside each other and they're doing an activity with each other, and that's what builds a bond. That's what starts to build a family, right? So if we have a family that does nothing together, like it doesn't really look like a family. It's like everybody doing their own thing. But then when we get families that go on picnics together, or they have like family events, or they celebrate holidays together, like it creates a tighter bond. And it's the same thing with dogs. So if we have new dog over here with one person and we bring back old dog, and then this dog starts being reactive, I could just start walking with this one, then the other person gradually brings up the other one, and then eventually we're side by side and we're walking, and the other dog notices but doesn't really care anymore, and then slowly we start to get them to walk beside each other, and we continue walking from anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes to an hour, what have you, and then bringing them back home. That's the easiest way if you're not working with a trainer, or if you're not if your dog's not, if you're not used to doing corrections like with a slip chain, a prong collar, electronic collar, what have you, is to do that activity first, bring them into the yard, and then just let them go, right? Pending that there's no tension. And of course leaving a leash on in case something were to happen, we have something to grab, because we don't want to just jump into the middle of a fight. And from that point on, there really shouldn't be a problem unless there's some kind of definite behavior problem with one of the dogs. And in that case, it's either you choose to move forward and say no, we really like this dog, we're going to bring them into the home, we're going to do the homework to keep them, or surrender them and try again with a different personality, see if it fits. It all just depends on how much work you're willing to do. Number 5, things that signal behavior problems are developing. A big one would be tension, especially for reactivity or aggression towards dogs or animals. Dogs or people. So if you're walking your dog, and then, or let's say you have a puppy, and over the course of that puppy's life, you start to see them maybe doing a real quick at a dog, and then we just kind of ignore it because we think it's cute or what have you, because it's a puppy, and then it grows bigger, and all of a sudden that quick little bark or rough becomes a lot of barking and lunging and pulling and all that stuff. Definitely something that we would have wanted to have gotten addressed immediately, as opposed to letting it slide for so long, and now it's a legitimate problem that needs to be worked with. So if I start to see the dog is kind of suspicious and tensing up around people or certain things, or people wearing certain things or certain dogs, then I go, okay, there's something here that needs to be addressed, and if it doesn't get addressed, it could eventually lead to some kind of possible aggression, right? The real obvious stuff, if the dog was scared or skitty, timid, overexcited, nervous, anxious, if you start to notice those cues right away once you get the dog, not something you want to just see if it sorts itself out. A lot of times people write it, go tell themselves maybe the dog will outgrow it, or and sometimes it could be just environmental. It's one thing if you rescue a dog on the 3rd of July and then the 4th of July is the next day and there's a lot of fireworks, then you're probably going to see anxiety and stuff like that. Doesn't mean you have an anxious dog, but obviously with the fireworks going off, that's a big part of it. Let's see, the dog getting over excited when you're leaving may lead to separation anxiety if that's not being addressed. Overexcitement or overstimulation can sometimes lead to what would be a frustrated aggression. So I've had dogs be mislabeled as human aggressive, and they're actually not human aggressive. They're just so overstimulated and so excited that any little thing triggers them. And when dogs, for in my opinion, dogs when they feel a certain feeling like anxiety, nervousness, fearfulness, or overstimulation, and all that, it has to come out physically. That has to be released. And dogs, of course, utilize their mouths as a way of releasing things, the chewing, destructive behavior, or nipping or biting, right? So through all that overexcitement, overstimulation, and then all of a sudden somebody comes into their space and they're like, oh my God, hello baby, and then like that high-pitched voice and that energy is just too much for the dog to handle. They gotta let it out, and then you get like a nip or a bite. So, but the dog's not really aggressive, it's just overstimulated. So, stuff like that, just recognizing what isn't, or what is and is not normal. And if you're not educated on it, I do recommend, I like Cesar Millan, because he is a source of information that I feel is about 90% to 95% spot on, because it talks about exercise and discipline, which is a big thing for dogs, and keeping them in line and make sure that behavior problems don't arise, or if they do arise, that we can kind of take care of them and keep them under control. Whether his show or his DVDs or his books, definitely watching his stuff I feel is beneficial, because you get to see it when he describes it. He goes, this dog's experiencing anxiety, this dog is timid, this dog is scared, this dog is nervous. So you start to learn how to differentiate between the different behaviors, because like nervousness, anxiety, and fearfulness look very similar, and we get similar reactions, but there's little subtle things that make each one different. So that's just something to keep in mind. Not getting too comfortable in that first 2-week period. Just because your dog is super sweet when you bring them home doesn't mean they're going to be super sweet after, once they get acclimated to the environment. Like I said before in the previous question, 2 weeks is a general rule of thumb, where dogs tend to find their place and find out who they are within the home. So definitely not try not to get too comfortable, being open-minded, and of course, always, I think it's beneficial for everybody that has a dog to go out and seek a trainer, a balanced trainer, because it really will help alleviate a lot of problems down the line. Okay, so I'm just with Canine Perspective, signing off. Until next time.